So how to break free of negative beliefs? You can look at negative beliefs like chains that you have placed upon yourself because of things that have happened to you in the past. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking down how beliefs are formed, what beliefs actually are, and then the final step is how to actually overcome them. But if you haven't watched my channel before, my name's Aaron. I run this channel, Unconscious Flow, which is all about making sure that your unconscious and your conscious mind come together in alignment so you can live life in flow. Flow is essentially living life on your own terms. So things happen how you want to happen, pretty much when you want to happen, and you can go about them in the way you want them to happen. So, what are negative beliefs? So, first we have to kind of look at the chronology or the way that they are formed. Okay. So sometimes they can be formed in a way which is kind of rational. We can think about it in that way. And in another way, you can look at them in kind of a more shadow perspective, right? Which is the way that we're going to be looking at right now, because this is the way that most likely you are experiencing them. So how are they formed, right? So there's kind of a few ways that they can form, or there's one main way that they can form, which is they are in response to something happening to you in the world. So let's say when we were a kid, most people have experienced this. There's like a stove that's on. You don't really have the experience to know what a stove is, what heat is, what getting burned is. And as a kid, you're just curious, so you just place your hand on the stove and then boom, you get burned. You never do that again, right? Because it's really painful. This is technically a belief that if I touch something if I touch a stove which is on, is going to hurt, right? Now, most of the time, as you're probably thinking, well, it doesn't really seem like a belief. That just seems like the fact of the matter, right? And it's true for 99% of that time, it will be the fact. But maybe one time you'll go and you'll touch it and you realize that it wasn't on, but you believe that it was on. So in this way, we can see that beliefs are quite monolithic, but also they're not necessarily bad, right? Like there's not always like a bad belief to have. Like that is actually a very functional belief to have, that if you touch the stove, your hand is going to get burnt, right? Whether it's on or not. Now we know that, what we can look at is specifically the beliefs that are affecting you, most likely. Okay, so they come in three different varieties: introjections, which is probably going to be the main one, which lead into projections and then lead into split ego states. I have a whole playlist on all of that, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll link it in the description below, so you can go ahead and watch that. And that's going to be dealing with essentially the belief part of this process, how to free yourself from negative beliefs. But there's another model that I want to bring in from one of my other mentors, James Tripp, called the hypnotic loop. So there's four different aspects of this loop. The first aspect is the belief aspect, right? So you can think of it, it's like on the top here. This belief then leads into something which James Tripp calls imagination or thoughts, okay? And so it goes belief right into thoughts, which is here. So your beliefs feed your imagination, right? In other words, if you believe that you're a strong, confident person, then you're going to have the thoughts or the mental or the mindfulness or the mentality of somebody that has those traits, because it comes from your belief system. Then the thoughts and the beliefs, so remember we pick up each one and we keep on going around. So the beliefs and the thoughts then move into physiology, okay? This is actually a really important step that most people kind of don't integrate, which is why James Tripp's model is so good, which is if you have let's say, the belief of a strong and confident person, the thoughts of a strong and confident person, that is naturally going to come into your physiology. So whatever you want to imagine as a strong and confident physiology is how you would interact, right? And that'll be different for everyone because everyone has different constructs around that, right? Which will affect how you move and carry yourself. But what it will most likely mean, what's going on organically, is a drop in cortisol and a spike in oxytocin and serotonin, which is directly correlated to the dominance hierarchy, if you want to look at it that way, in a kind of social setting. And obviously that's fluid. It's not like a alpha beta type situation. That kind of way of thinking has actually been quite thoroughly been scientifically disproven, because we don't live in those types of tribal archetypes or those type of tribal groups where it has those kind of clear set boundaries. But what you can kind of think about this is that the person who has this physiology will be very, very relaxed, very, very grounded, and just be also very light, right? And that can be expressed in so many different ways, shoulders back, good eye contact, smiling, laughing, all that kind of stuff. So then you have all these three, and they lead into the last part, which is experience. So if you have the beliefs of a strong, confident person, if you're using this in this example, you have the imagination of one, you have the physiology of one, so you're actually moving through the world like that, which is also another big part of psychophysiology. which is what I think as well what James Tripp coined too, and also in Dharma theory and Dharma practice from my other mentor, Sister Kema, who was a Buddhist nun we lived with and kind of taught us the Dharma, is that the mind and body are the same thing. They're connected. They're both just part of mind, right? So if you have one phenomena arising here, the other ones, there's going to be a matching phenomena that's arising from the other part. And this feeds into your experience. So that your experience of the world will reflect this, that you're strong and you're confident. Okay, because you have all of these other things working together and leading into experience. But then the cool thing about the hypnotic loop is that this experience then feeds back into the belief. So it reinforces your belief system, right? So why am I telling you this? So we kind of looked, we kind of brushed over how beliefs are actually formed, how limiting beliefs are actually formed, how negative beliefs are actually formed, how positive beliefs are actually formed, because they're formed in the same way, just with different outcomes. They're moving with more favorable outcomes. This is how they are being sustained. This is something which I rarely ever see anybody talk about, okay? Because once you have something implanted within you, that's just not how it is. It doesn't just stay there, right? It's like a skill set. Like if you get good at something, like jiu-jitsu, right? I haven't trained jiu-jitsu in a few years, but I was pretty good when I stopped. I'll still have some level of ability. I'll still have something there, but I'll be nowhere near as good as I was when I left. Okay, because it has to be sustained and maintained. It's the same thing about beliefs. They have to be sustained and maintained. This framework is how they are not only being sustained and maintained, but actually strengthened, which means if we reverse it, or if we use this framework, we can actually begin to weaken them. Okay, so how do we do this? The $1 million question, right? Although I charge a lot less than $1 million. Essentially, you see where in this framework is the easiest for you to insert yourself. Okay, is it physiology? Is it maybe imagination and thoughts, right? Now, if you're a one-on-one client, we'd actually go straight into the belief work system, which you can do as well with the playlist that I've given for you for free. But obviously, it won't be as effective as working with somebody one-on-one, right? So you can go into the belief section there with all of the belief stuff that this channel is teaching you and that playlist that I'm going to link below. You can go into the thoughts. I just be careful about going into the imagination and really trying to strongman your mind, like pull it into this section, because first, the mind doesn't really respond that well to that kind of forcing. And second of all, it just takes a crazy amount of mindfulness, which you might not have the time or the energy or even the ability to do. How you train your mindfulness is with the right kind of meditations, not just like a 20-minute mindfulness meditation, which is guided, right? That's not going to do it. Okay. Hate to break it to you. But there's certain exercises that you can go into. If you have questions about that, actually leave a comment below and I'll do a separate video on that for you. With physiology, this is typically the easiest to go into to interrupt that hypnotic loop. So, because you can just stand in a different way, you can smile, right? So, when I was training Muay Thai, one of the instructors told me was every time somebody hits you and it hurts, smile, because it convinces your mind that the pain is not as bad as it feels, right? Now, I'm not sure how rigorously backed up that is, but I remember that when I did it, it felt a lot better. Now, I think unless I'm getting this mistaken, I also think that when you smile, it releases endorphins from the pineal gland as well. That's like a simple physiology thing to do as well, or laughter. Laughter is another big one. It just makes things much less heavy, much more light-hearted. And one of the things that when you're trapped in these kind of negative thought patterns, these negative thought loops, these negative belief loops, okay, one of the things that happens is we take it so seriously, we take it so personally, we take it so heavy. So if you can interrupt that process physiologically or mentally, actually, then you're on a really good path to weaken that belief system, to weaken that thought pattern, that negative thought pattern. And then the fourth one is experience. So how can you do things in the world right now to make your experience different? What can you do that's going to affect you like really quickly? Maybe it's turning on like a different kind of shade of light, or it's going to a park or whatever, right? This is a little bit more, again, more tricky to get into. I think it's a little bit more tricky than thoughts. Thoughts and physiology are the easiest. And belief as well is actually much more straightforward. You can just take a little bit of time of building that skill set, because it is a skill set doing shadow work on yourself or having shadow work done to you in a one-on-one context, right? Experience is kind of something which follows all of the others. So you can play around with it, but I wouldn't actually recommend it to be the first thing that you go into, right? Physiology first, and then mental and belief systems second. So we have all of this framework now. I think the final part is some clarity on the actual root cause and how to heal that, right? So the root cause will be healed in the belief based in the belief part of this hypnotic loop. I find it very hard to believe if you're able to heal it just through the physiology part of it. Okay. You can definitely make things less solid and make things less sustainable by going through physiological and the mental path. But the belief part is actually the thing which is going to heal the core issue, which is why I've made that playlist for you. So you can go and you can actually go and try that. And please, if you have any questions, you can comment on those videos. You can comment on this video if something's not clear. And I will do a video response for you because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to actually genuinely help you. If you feel like you're a little bit stuck or you really feel like this is something which you can grow a lot from and you're ready for it, then I had my one-on-one coaching link in the description below, which I recommend you to go and book yourself in a call. Don't worry, it's not going to be like a hard sales call or anything like that. I don't do hard sales, I don't do hard selling. It will just be a chat one-on-one to see where you are, where you want to go, where I am, and if we can work together. Okay. So one last thing on the core, on the core seed. Okay. We do not want to rush this process, right? So it's kind of a strange example to bring in, but what's one of the sayings that got popularized by SEAL Team 6 is slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? Ironically, by slowing down, by taking the process more in the moment, like moment to moment, really investigating where these beliefs are coming from, being interested, being intrigued. I'm not just saying that for the fun of it, right? I'm not just saying that because I think it sounds cool. I'm saying that because it's the most effective way to deal with your mind, right? A lot of the people, so a lot of the clients I work with come from a Western background, usually pretty successful people, like educated, have their own business, or they're doing very well in their company. They kind of have to leave that Western style, that Western school of just push, just force at the door in order to really make good progress in this work. They can have that intention, they can hold themselves to a high standard. But in terms of the real forcing, the real pushing, the real putting in the hours, putting in the work, unfortunately, that is not how the unconscious mind works. How the unconscious mind responds the best to is a very light, very intentional, but very light and playful exploration. Okay, that is so, so critical. If you're having trouble with this, if you've been trying for shadow work for years, this is probably one of the big things of why it's not clicking for you. The other one, I'm sorry to say, is this industry has a lot of people that don't really know what they're talking about and also don't have a big framework of how to deal with the different shadows. And it just causes so much chaos and confusion. They just kind of a one-trick pony. Okay, so that's something to look out for. Bit of a shorter video. This is definitely a video which I'm going to do some follow-ups to for sure, because I think negative beliefs is a really, really big topic that a lot of people get stuck on. If this is something that you want me to go further into, please leave a comment. Obviously, if you want to do some one-on-one work, I have my link below. And if you're not ready for any of that, then you know what my channel is, and I hope to see you back soon.